Hola, this is the demo video of Scrybe, a home of all your data science artifacts, including data, features, models, and visualizations. Let's say I'm a data scientist and my team is using Scrybe. So I start my day with this homepage, which is basically a list of all the projects that are going on within my team. And I can see my projects such as collision detection, MNIST digit classifier, and the trip classification project. Within a snapshot, I can see some details like the project description. I can see the number of data sets that are being used in a single project. I can see the number of experiments. And I can see something known as the project ID, which I'll explain shortly why it's useful. Let's start with the MNIST digit classifier project and dive deep into that one. Now, besides the metadata for my particular project, which includes the training and test data set and the project description that we had, you can see a leaderboard. Now, a leaderboard is basically a collection of all the best models that my team has been working on that have been promoted to show up here. In a snapshot, you can see things like the name of the model, some of the performance metrics such as accuracy, latency, train test loss, validation loss, and you can see the person who has been working on this particular project. Within this dashboard, I can promote any model up or down depending on the metrics I care about. Besides the leaderboard, you can also see all the data sets that are used in creating models for this particular project. And you can see all the experiments that might be relevant for this project. Now, these experiments are basically all the models that I have built to solve this particular problem. As you can see, some of these models do get reflected in the leaderboard, but not all of them. This is basically where I have all the models that I have already built, which are really nice, and or some of the models which are more experimental. Some of them might not be as correct as I want them to be. Some of them I'm still working on. So depending on how confident I feel of a particular model, I can promote it to the leaderboard or make it publicly visible to my entire team. So now let's jump into an actual model in my Python notebook. So this is where this is basically my workspace where I'm actually developing the model for the digit classifier using MNIST datasets. Here I am basically the way to send all this information to Scrybe is by adding the statement import Scrybe and then initializing it with the project ID that you saw on the dashboard previously. This is a pretty standard model. I'm basically picking up my data set, I'm normalizing it here, and I'm using the training and test data set and the paths that I saw in the Scrybe dashboard. Then I am basically below this. Below this is basically where I am actually constructing my model. You can see here all the hyperparameters that I'm using for my particular model. You can see all the layers that I have built out. And you can see that this is where I'm training the model. Below this, I am basically evaluating the model and also looking at some of the performance metrics. And later on, I'm plotting some of these. I'm plotting the ROC curve using matplotlib. So let's do one thing. Let's change some of the hyperparameters and architecture of my model and see if that gets reflected in my Scrybe dashboard. So let's say I'm changing, batch size. I'm changing epochs. I'm changing the activation to ReLU. I am changing the num filters. And while I'm at it, I'm also changing number of perceptrons. And let me also comment out one layer of my model and see how that plays out, how that affects my accuracy. So let me start training my model again because that will take some time. So here I am basically, again, I said, training my model. I am looking at, I'm going to be looking at performance metrics, and then I'm going to be plotting those performance metrics. So what should happen is all these experiments should automatically get reflected in my Scrybe dashboard. The experiments pane that you saw here, it basically already has my older model right here, and it has the other models that I worked on, such as this one with just 11% accuracy. I can come here and I can investigate what went wrong with my particular model. I can see all the hyperparameters in one place. I can see the architecture of my model. So within a snapshot, I can basically try to understand why I'm not getting the performance that I expected from it. Now, let me just see if my model is trained already or not. Almost there, almost there. So once this model is trained, you should basically start seeing this particular model as well on my dashboard. And then we can compare how this one is with respect to the older one that I had with 92% accuracy. So here I'm basically testing out and printing a classification report for my particular model. And yes, and now I'm also plotting the RC curve for my model using MatPlotlib. So now I go back to my dashboard and refresh. And yes, so you see the fifth model appearing here with 98% accuracy. And here you can see the details of my model, such as the epochs, the mini batch, the momentum, the optimizer. You can also see that it's missing a layer that the other previous model had. So now, let's say I feel very confident of this model and I want to promote it to the leaderboard. So I basically go here and then I promote it to the leaderboard. So now what should happen is, yes, we go back to the leaderboard and we should start seeing my model on this dashboard. And I know that this particular model has the highest accuracy, so I'm just going to promote it up to number 1 position. So now you can see the other models that the rest of my teammates have been working on. You can sort on other metrics like latency, train test loss, etc. Now, let's dive deeper into this particular model. So this is basically the model details page, which is again super useful to understand what's happening within a single model. Here you can, besides the metadata such as the model paths and description, you can see a model lineage graph. This model lineage graph basically tells me, what I started off with, the location of my data sets, whether in S3 or in memory. You can see what kind of model I'm using. And in the end, you can see that I'm generating a classification report. You can also see details such as all the hyperparameters that are being used in my model and the architecture of my particular model. Most importantly, you can also see the performance metrics within a single snapshot, such as the training and validation loss curves, the accuracy curves, and the test performance of my particular model. So here you can see the class-wise performance metrics for every single digit. This is super useful for understanding how my model is performing on every single digit that I'm trying to classify. And beneath that, you can basically see the ROC curve that I was trying to plot earlier on a per digit basis. So this is Scrybe, and we're basically trying to bring determinism and transparency to your data science workflows. Thank you.